The smouldering ruins signalled that the heat had not gone from Handsworth. Local Labour MP Roy Hattersley toured the calm streets, but the anger still simmered. There were hundreds of people on the streets, and word of the Home Secretary's visit spread. Some continued to blame insensitive policing for sparking off the riots.
When we wanted the jobs to be black policemen in a 72, 73, 74, they never want to give us the job. Now they're offering the jobs to kids and don't want the jobs. Yeah, it's a mental problem. It's not just an ordinary problem, man. They might make it look like it's an ordinary problem. Look at it. No, it's not an ordinary problem. It's going to happen again and it can't be stopped.
And it did happen again when the Home Secretary Douglas Hurd arrived.
As you can see, the whole place is in shutters, you know?
And how do you explain that?
Well, unemployment, everything.
Well, unemployment,
unemployment
doesn't mean...
What's up? And oppression.
This is for the people, see?
What you were saying.
As the noise level grew, more and more people ran in from the side streets to swell the chanting. It became obvious that Mr. Hurd's walkabout would have to end very quickly if he was to get out unhurt. Bottles and bricks flew and the Home Secretary was bundled out of the way as another full-scale riot erupted. Mr. Hurd emerged in a quieter area for a more sympathetic hearing.
Must have been a scary experience.
The police tried in vain to regroup in full riot gear to block off the trouble areas, but they were simply providing targets for the mobs of youths stoning them. Families ushered the children off the streets or stood stunned watching their neighbourhood disintegrate into mayhem. A police van full of reinforcements was overturned and set alight, but those inside escaped unhurt. The riot became a free-for-all as gangs looted shops, whatever the prize. When there was nothing worth stealing, windows were broken. There was shattered glass everywhere, and unwanted booty littered the floors.
Gangs of youths and men roamed the streets. They congregated on almost every street corner in the Handsworth and Lozells area of the city. The tension was electric. A number of cars, including a police van, were overturned. Other vehicles were deliberately set on fire by petrol bombs. Looting was widespread. Over 100 BMX bikes stolen from just one shop alone. Police with riot shields were stoned by the mobs, many, it appears, having had far too much to drink. We've been stoned on 2 occasions driving through the streets, and on foot we bailed out very quickly from one incident where we saw the windows of a petrol station smashed. Tonight the whole area will be flooded with police. Up to 1,000 officers will be on duty, some coming from as far away as Cheshire. But already shopkeepers are boarding up their premises and are out in force to protect their businesses from the firebombers and looters. The Chief Constable has said the situation is on a knife edge and he's worried what might happen this evening. But he's confident that he has enough men to deal with any situation.
It started here at the Villa Cross Bingo Hall. It ended 7 hours later with fires blazing all over Handsworth. Up until 8 o'clock last night, it had been a quiet day by Handsworth standards. But a minor incident involving a policeman and a motorist sparked a riot that was to last most of the night, with the centre of Handsworth becoming a no-go area where the mob ruled unchallenged. I stood in the middle of Lozells Road as gangs of mainly black youths looted shops and set them on fire around me. The sound of glass smashing was everywhere. A group of youths was busy plundering an electrical store, hurrying away with their booty. The police stood and watched from a distance. They didn't yet have the manpower to move in. One boy hid his haul on a piece of wasteland before going back for more. I saw a car with 2 televisions squeezed in the back. One white boy demanded to know why I wasn't joining in. He was clearly having the time of his life. All the main roads into the area were sealed off by now. At Handsworth police station, reinforcements were arriving and being kitted out. 600 police were on the streets at the height of the riots. The trouble spread to the Soho road. A builder's merchant unwittingly provided the rioters with a constant supply of ammunition. But the police were finally ready and went on to the offensive. We had to go into Handsworth and win it back block by block, said the Chief Constable later. He had come to see for himself the riot in progress. At last the fire brigade was able to work more or less unhindered. Earlier it too had been driven back under a hail of missiles and petrol bombs. 100 firemen were in action now, but they couldn't stop the flames destroying 50 shops, a pub, a garage and a church.
Dawn revealed the full extent of the night's rioting. Handsworth smouldered after the worst urban disturbances for 4 years. With first light, the grim reality that the violence had claimed lives. Firemen attempting to restore some semblance of normality to this devastated community discovered 2 charred bodies, thought to be Asians, in the burnt-out post office on the Lozells Road. It's thought another 2 people could also have died. So murder was added to the list of the night's atrocities in Handsworth. For the Asians, whose shops and businesses had borne the brunt of the violence, the grief was undisguised. This slice of Birmingham had once proudly boasted the best inner-city community relations in Britain. Sadly, Handsworth today had a scarred, almost wartime look to it as residents began to assess the damage. That's likely to run into millions of pounds. Daylight only accentuated the destruction caused by the 300 or so youths the night before. Buildings still smouldered, shops were wrecked, cars burnt out, livelihoods literally destroyed. There was still danger on the streets this morning. Many buildings were unstable, and because of gas seeping in the Lozells Road, some residents had to leave their homes for fear of explosions. Those who live and work here had a bewildered look. Some people did try to go about their business, others were too stunned to do anything except huddle in groups. Handsworth had literally seen its heart torn out. Community leaders can now only hope and pray that time will heal these wounds.
The Villa Cross area of Handsworth, and in particular the Villa Cross pub, is well known for the amount of drug dealing which goes on here. Next door is a disused cinema. Planners have agreed to it reopening as an amusement arcade. It's this issue which has generated tremendous opposition from local residents, businessmen and MPs. And it was trouble outside here last night and the subsequent firebombing of the cinema which signalled the start of the rioting.
The summer riots of 1981 were the first, and until last night, the only major disruption to the softly policy of community policing, which since the early 70s had seen an increasing emphasis on getting the police out of their patrol cars and back on foot, mingling more with the various communities. The report on the 1981 street disturbances concluded that they were largely the result of the so-called copycat factor, following unrest elsewhere in the country, notably at Southall and Brixton in London and Toxteth in Liverpool. The relative ease with which the communities and the police restored normality after the 1981 unrest was seen as proof that it did not indicate a more fundamental erosion of the goodwill that had been built up. But now this community has new wounds to heal.
There's a lot of frustration in this area because it is the worst hit area. The West Midlands is the worst hit for unemployment. Nothing is coming into this area. There's no funding whatsoever. And all the projects that have been cut are black projects. We all get it. We all get the, if you like, there's poison under the stick every time.
It wasn't one simple incident. It's everything in everybody's minds, what's happening in South Africa. Everything, it's just everything in the people's minds. Tension built up. It's not just one incident.
You know, you just have the feeling that you're being watched all the time. You know what I mean? They're not even looking at you and smiling with you or anything. You know, they're just looking at you to say, you know, if you look at them too hard, you know, it's trouble.
And plus the police just want, you know, the people that sell the drugs. Personally, the police want the drugs people and them to work together. That's why. And people are not informing on other people anymore. They cut that out, right? So because of that, They have to draw down, you know, they have to come down heavy on everybody, innit? Because people are not going to go to them and say that person's selling or that person's selling.
Had it not been for the swift response of the black leadership within the city, Birmingham would be burning today. And I think the black leadership should be congratulated on their swift response and the way that they handled themselves last night.
Britain's worst riot since 1981 began just before 8 o'clock. Firemen called to a blaze at the Villa Cross Bingo Hall faced a hail of petrol bombs. Within minutes, gangs of youths were on the rampage down Lozells Road. Shops were firebombed and looted, and soon trouble spread to other streets. An hour later, the centre of Handsworth was ablaze. What had been a thriving shopping centre had become an inferno. The heat was intense, and at times the fire was almost out of control. Firemen faced the almost impossible task of confining the blaze. As it was brought under control in one street, new trouble flared in another. At one stage, firemen had to retreat when a hardware store stocked with propane gas caught alight. The sound of exploding gas cylinders echoed like gunshots down the street. Police reinforcements were hurriedly drafted in to quell the riot. Officers, protected by helmets and perspex shields, soon cordoned off all main roads into the centre of Handsworth. Their aim, to cut the rioters off from the rest of the city.
Well, at present we're clearing the area. The fire brigade are trying to contain the fires, and we're trying to catch the culprits. It's as simple as that. But unfortunately they've spread not only from the Lozells, they've spread along Soho Road, and we're now... Hang on, there's another building going. That's what we're doing. We're literally chasing shadows at present.
Were the police caught out by the speed in which this trouble spread?
Oh. Well, this sort of thing is so rare that anybody's caught out, I think. We have police officers in the area, but the way they were running around, I don't think any police force in the world could have covered all the buildings. As you can see, they started one end and just ran in various directions, setting fire to cars, cutting petrol pipes and setting the cars on fire in the street. And then buildings were looted.
Have you any idea why this started?
No, we haven't any idea at all. We've just had a very peaceful carnival, as you know, at the weekend, and everything went well, no problems at all. And then just out of the blue, this has happened.
2 days after having one of the best carnivals that we've ever had in the city, and it would appear through insensitive policing again, we are now struck with this silly problem, which looks so serious that people are actually trapped in there. What has happened? The police has brought in a pincer movement that has trapped some of the young lads who are throwing petrol bombs to escape out of the situation. We're trying to get in to talk to these people, to tell them to put down the petrol bomb, and we can't get in.
Do you think you'll be able to stop what's happening tonight?
I'm praying to the Almighty that we are able to, because if we don't, this is not going to stop here, and this is what I'm afraid of. Because the general feeling of the young people here, it's a state of helplessness, and we need help.
The riot went on for over 4 hours, leaving in its wake more than 50 shops burned out and looted. As the fires blazed, both police and blacks assessed what had happened to their community.
Well, what we're seeing here today is the result of the type of insensitivity that has been displayed by the police in this area over a very long period of time. A simple road traffic incident escalated into major violence. Virtual anarchy took place in this area as a consequence of the way in which the police decided that they could deal with black people within this community.
The police have gone out of their way to foster good relations in Handsworth. Has tonight destroyed that?
Well, you've only got to look around. I'm dismayed, I'll be quite honest. I've been here many years and I've never seen one. We've never had anything like this. And I'm certain it's just this, well, we think there's 200 to 300 of them, and there are many more. There's 100,000 coloured people in Handsworth, and I'm certain they're just as upset as I am to see this sort of thing going on.
There was peace on the streets of Handsworth last night, but already some politicians and community leaders say the price paid to restore order was simply too high. After an appeal from Rastafarians, police agreed to keep their frontline forces to a minimum and their reinforcements in the background. The deal's been attacked as an attempt by police to avoid their responsibilities, but the man in charge says it's a deal which worked.
The area which tonight was so I say low-profile policing is now being policed by my own band of cars. They're attending the incidents there. They've had no problems whatsoever, and that is the first step back to normality.
And the Rastafarians say if police keep their side of the bargain, then they'll keep the peace.
Well, I don't see why there should be a repeat of any trouble over the weekend, because people want to go back to normality. As you see on the street, people walking freely, going about their business, doing shopping, and we are very pleased with that, and we know that will continue unless the police decide to do something drastic on ground.
Police struggled to control a crowd of men and women who brought the courts to a halt for a time by shouting and screaming in the foyer just inside the main entrance doors. In court, most defendants pleaded not guilty to public order offences or burglary and looting. They were remanded until future dates, some on bail, others in custody. Though in the first case up, 28-year-old John Sheen, one of many white men arrested in the riots, admitted threatening behaviour and was jailed for 28 days.
James Hazel's parents have been in constant touch with their son, who's been in hiding since the photograph was splashed across millions of newspapers last week. After watching Central News on Friday, they agreed that their son should give himself up. So a couple of hours ago they left their house to meet their son at the police station and escort him in. Another son took 3 London lawyers to pick up James Hazel from his secret address.
I feel alright about it. I feel alright about it because that is what he wanted.
Are you worried at all?
Of course I am. They want a scapegoat. So I'm sure that he's worried about his position at the moment.
As the car carrying James Hazel arrived at the police station, a group of supporters and community workers shouted, "Go in like a soldier."
James, before you go in, James, can we talk about
Mr. Hazel, why did you come here today?
I will make a short statement.
The crowd swarmed inside, and for a few moments there was total chaos as people shouted at the police to allow regular visits from a doctor and a lawyer to check on Hazel's well-being while he was in custody.
That correct, community people?
Eventually the 3 lawyers, along with Hazel's parents, were allowed into the interview room.
The doctor is there, an independent doctor, to make sure your son is in bed. Welcome to work.
Thank you very much.
A few minutes later, the lawyers emerged with a brief statement.
He does not know why they want to talk to him, and that's all he has to say.
Why did it take your client such a long time to come forward?
I've got no further comment to make. Because he came here of his own free will, because he heard that he was wanted, and that's all he's authorized me to say. Nothing more.
Hazel has now been questioned for about 2 hours. So far, police have made no comment and no charges have been brought.
In the 50s, the British government actively encouraged immigration. Midlands factories working flat out were short of labour. West Indians were encouraged to uproot to a promising future. But Handsworth in Birmingham, with its rundown housing, was all the new Commonwealth immigrants could afford. There were soon signs of unrest, not riot, but enough to bring the then Prime Minister of Jamaica to Birmingham.
There is not, in my opinion, a natural danger of race tensions increasing. I have found an amazing improvement in the last 3 years. The British people have very decent and kindly instincts. But if your politicians stir it up, it will increase. And of course, if a recession takes place, the foreigner in your midst will find resentment if he continues employed while British people can't find work. I admit that.
Throughout the 60s, there were what we would now see as outrageous cases of racial prejudice. Some men went on strike when black workers were taken on. A white girl had to seek permission before marrying a black man. Tension began to mount. Handsworth soon became a multiracial home, with as many Asian families as Caribbean. But the prosperous Asians preferred to live at arm's length from their Caribbean neighbours. Whatever trouble might have been brewing was contained in the early 70s, when Handsworth was singled out for a unique community policing project. Out went the panda cars, in came the bobbies on their beat. Their job, to get involved with the community. It worked well until 1981. After the Toxteth riots, Handsworth too erupted. Police made over 500 arrests in 2 days of summer riots. 150 people were injured as gangs of youths went on an orgy of looting and destruction. The police officer who'd pioneered the community project resigned soon after.
The trouble is that people within the police service will not give us sufficient credibility, and they don't agree necessarily with what's happening in Handsworth and the style of policing that we have here. And that's the trouble at the present moment, that we're not given the prominence and credibility that this sort of policing deserves.
Handsworth, it appears, has always been a volatile, multiracial area. 57,000 people live in the district, 18,000 are Asian, 12,000 West Indian. Of the 16,000 houses in the area, 1,500 are still without either bath or toilet. But unemployment remains the biggest grievance for youngsters in the area, where nearly 1 man in 3 is out of work, a staggering 30% unemployed.
Communities like the black communities, which are the most disadvantaged, are not given practical funding, realistic funding to create training and business opportunities. Then if riots come to the street, don't blame us. They've been trying.
In fact, the West Indian community has always felt itself at the bottom of the ladder. It's hard to get a job, they say, but even tougher if you're black.
Well, a lot of people around here, like you said, are not employed, but at the same time, they find things to occupy themselves in doing. You know? I mean, a lot of them come in here for a game of snooker. I mean, that's the only thing they can do around here, really.
Little wonder then that large chunks of the West Indian community have shrunk into a secret world of their own, rejecting the society they live in, yet sticking together in an area that's run down, where housing is poor, where discontent is rife.
That child that you see on the street don't even have a place to call their own. No mother or father to look to. Just be grateful that child's not you.
And in this twilight world, there's now a serious drugs problem. Drugs are openly bought and sold on the streets in Handsworth. Local residents have demanded police action. And when the police raided the Villa Cross pub and a nearby cafe, 15 people were charged with drug offences. Yet the raid only increased claims of police harassment. Maintaining law and order here has never been easy. It may well be even harder now.